Reddit story: we loved each other, but over time, the feelings faded. Have you ever been in a relationship where everything felt perfect at first, but over time, you started to realize that the love you once shared wasn't the same? You thought it was meant to last, but somehow the connection began to fade. Sometimes, despite all the love, feelings change, and the relationship becomes unrecognizable. This is the story of Lily and Jake. They loved each other once, but over time, their feelings faded, and that's when everything started to fall apart. Lily and Jake had been together for almost 4 years. They met at a mutual friend's party, and from the very first moment, they felt a spark. They shared common interests, and their relationship moved quickly, filled with excitement and passion. They traveled, laughed, and had endless conversations about their dreams and future. At first, everything seemed perfect, and they were excited to build a life together. But as time passed, things started to change. Lily noticed that the love they once shared started to feel more like a routine. The passionate conversations turned into simple chats about work and daily life, and the excitement of their adventures started to feel like obligations rather than fun. Jake became busier with his job while Lily began to focus more on her own career and personal growth. The chemistry that once brought them together started to fade. There were no more surprise date nights, no more spontaneous adventures, and no more excitement to look forward to. Lily tried to keep the spark alive. She initiated deep conversations, suggested new activities, and made an effort to keep their connection strong. But Jake seemed distant. His attention divided between work and other responsibilities. Lily started to feel like they were no longer the couple they once were. She found herself questioning the future of their relationship. She loved Jake, but the love didn't feel the same anymore. This wasn't about infidelity or betrayal. It wasn't even about fighting or major disagreements. It was about the simple fact that feelings can fade over time. And when that happens, it becomes hard to maintain the same connection. Lily and Jake had started with so much passion, but as time went on, they grew into different versions of themselves. Their desires, their dreams, and even their daily routines started to drift apart. Lily needed emotional connection and excitement, while Jake was focused on his career and stability. Both of them had changed, but they hadn't adapted to each other's changes. Their love had faded not because of something drastic, but because they were no longer aligned in what they wanted from life. Sometimes, no matter how much love you have for someone, when your goals, values, and priorities no longer align, it becomes difficult to keep the relationship alive. And that's what happened with Lily and Jake. They simply grew apart. And this story resonates with many people on Reddit, because so many of us have been in relationships where love was present, but over time feelings changed, and the relationship began to feel like a routine. When feelings fade, it's hard to keep moving forward together, no matter how much you care for each other. You faded, Love commented. We loved each other, but over time, the passion faded. We just grew apart, and no matter how hard we tried, it felt like we were on different paths. 22. 1K. Likes: love can start strong, but if you and your partner change in different ways, that love can fade, and the connection can weaken. We grew apart. Shared. I loved her, but over time I realized that our feelings weren't the same. We stopped communicating, stopped sharing, and eventually we drifted apart. 5K likes. Feeling the distance grow between you and your partner can be one of the hardest experiences in a relationship. It's not that love disappears, but that the connection is no longer as strong as it once was. Changes. In Love wrote, "Love fades slowly when both people change but don't grow together. You end up feeling like strangers in your own relationship." 19. 8K likes. Sometimes love doesn't fade suddenly. It's a slow process that happens over time when both people grow but can't grow together. And Routine said, "We started as soulmates, but eventually we became just two people going through the motions. It's painful, but love wasn't enough to fix it." 18.3 K likes. When the routine takes over and the love feels like it's on autopilot, that's when you start realizing that something important is missing. Lily and Jake's story reminds us that love is not always enough to keep a relationship alive when feelings fade. No matter how much you love each other, the emotional connection that once held you together can begin to fade. And sometimes the best thing to do is acknowledge it and let go, so both people can move forward and find what they truly need. We loved each other, but I was giving everything and receiving nothing, and that's when everything started to fall apart. Have you ever loved someone so deeply, but no matter how much you gave, you always felt like you were the only one trying? You poured your heart and soul into the relationship, but somehow your partner didn't seem to notice, and that love became one-sided. This is the story of Sophie and Liam. They loved each other, but over time, Sophie felt like she was giving everything, and Liam was giving nothing in return. And that's when everything started to fall apart. Sophie and Liam had been together for 2 years. They met through mutual friends, and from the beginning, their connection was immediate. They shared the same hobbies, loved talking for hours, and spent countless days exploring new places together. Sophie loved Liam deeply. She thought he was the one. But as time passed, Sophie started to feel like something was wrong. She began to notice that she was always the one putting in the effort. She would organize dates, make sure they spent quality time together, and always show Liam how much she cared. But Liam didn't seem to do the same for her. He would often cancel plans last minute, forget important events in her life, and rarely make an effort to show her he loved her. At first, Sophie thought it was just a phase. Maybe Liam was stressed with work, or maybe he didn't realize how much she was doing. But as time went on, it became clear that this wasn't a phase. Sophie was giving everything: her time, her energy, her love. But Liam didn't seem to be doing the same. He wasn't as affectionate as he used to be, and the passion that once brought them together started to fade. Sophie was emotionally drained and started feeling like she was the only one holding the relationship together. One evening, Sophie couldn't take it anymore and decided to confront Liam. "Liam, I need to talk to you. I love you, but I feel like I'm the only one trying in this relationship. I'm giving everything, and I'm not getting anything in return." Liam was quiet for a moment and then said, "I'm sorry, Sophie. I didn't realize you felt that way. I thought everything was fine." But Sophie knew that it was more than just a misunderstanding. She had been giving everything for far too long, and the love she had was no longer enough to carry the relationship. This wasn't about love fading. Sophie still loved Liam deeply. It wasn't even about fighting or any major arguments. It was about the realization that love isn't enough when it's not being reciprocated. Sophie had been the one to always give, but Liam didn't seem to understand the importance of giving back. In any relationship, it's crucial that both people put in the effort. When one person carries all the weight, the relationship becomes unbalanced and unhealthy. Sophie wanted to feel loved, appreciated, and valued, but she realized that Liam couldn't offer her the same level of care and attention that she was giving him. She wasn't asking for grand gestures, just simple acts of love and recognition, but Liam was either too busy or too indifferent to make the effort. Love requires mutual effort, and when one person constantly gives without receiving anything in return, the love starts to feel one-sided. Sophie's story is a reminder that love is a two-way street, and it's impossible to sustain a relationship when only one person is doing all the giving. This story struck a chord with many people on Reddit. Because so many of us have experienced relationships where we loved deeply, but we felt like we were the only ones trying. When one person is always giving, but the other is emotionally distant, it creates a painful imbalance that can eventually tear the relationship apart. "You giving too much," commented. "I've been in a relationship where I was constantly giving, but I felt like I was the only one trying. It's emotionally draining when your efforts aren't reciprocated." 23. 2K likes. Relationships require balance, and when one person gives too much, it can lead to burnout and resentment. Without effort from both sides, the relationship can't thrive. A one-sided love shared, "I loved him so much, but I started to feel invisible. No matter what I did, it felt like he wasn't even trying to make the relationship work." 21. 6K likes. When you give everything but the other person doesn't put in the same effort, it can feel like you're invisible in the relationship. Love requires mutual care and effort. Oh, Emotional Exhaustion wrote, "I sacrificed everything, but I was always met with indifference. Eventually I realized that love alone wasn't enough to keep me in this relationship." 23K likes. Sacrifices are a part of love. But when one person is constantly giving without receiving it, leads to emotional exhaustion and frustration. "To love is a two-way street," said. "Love can't survive if only one person is carrying the weight. It's painful when you realize you're the only one trying to keep it going." 18. 9K likes. Love is supposed to be a shared effort, not a one-sided sacrifice. When one person feels like they're doing all the work, it creates a significant imbalance in the relationship. Sophie's story reminds us that love can't survive when it's one-sided, when one person is constantly giving and the other isn't reciprocating. The relationship becomes unhealthy. Love requires mutual effort, respect, and care. Without that, even the strongest love can start to fall apart. "I loved you with all my heart, but you never loved me back." And that's when everything started to fall apart. Have you ever loved someone so deeply, but no matter how much you gave, they never loved you back? You tried so hard to show them how much you cared, but they couldn't see it, or they just didn't feel the same way. This is the story of Emily and Tom. Emily loved Tom with all her heart, but no matter how much she tried, Tom never returned her feelings, and that's when everything started to fall apart. Emily and Tom met through mutual friends about a year ago. They hit it off right away. They shared the same sense of humor, enjoyed the same movies, and had so many conversations that could go on for hours. Emily found herself drawn to Tom in a way that went beyond friendship. She cared for him deeply and felt a special connection every time they spent time together. She began to notice little things, how his smile made her heart flutter, how she couldn't stop thinking about him even when they weren't together. Over time, she realized that she was falling for him deeply in love. But Tom, he never seemed to feel the same way. He treated her like a close friend, someone he could confide in, but nothing more. He never initiated anything romantic, or even hinted at having feelings for her beyond friendship. Emily tried everything she could think of. She would be extra kind, supportive, and show him how much she cared. She would hint at her feelings, hoping he would notice, but every time he would brush it off, as though it didn't mean anything. She kept waiting for him to realize how much she loved him. But the truth was, he never did. He never loved her the way she loved him, and the more she gave, the more she felt like she was invisible in his eyes. One day, after yet another failed attempt to get closer, Emily realized something painful. "I've given everything I have to him, but he will never love me the way I love him." That moment was a turning point for Emily. She realized that no matter how much she tried, no matter how much love she had to offer, it wasn't going to be enough. But this wasn't about Tom being a bad person. He cared for Emily, but Not in the way she needed him to. He didn't intentionally hurt her. He just didn't share the same feelings. And that's the painful truth about unrequited love. It's not that the other person doesn't care. It's that they can't return the same depth of love. Emily had spent so much time trying to make Tom see her in a romantic light. But in the end, she realized that love can't be forced. No matter how much you want to be with someone, if they don't feel the same way, nothing you do can change that. For Emily, the hardest part was accepting that her feelings were not reciprocated. She gave so much of herself emotionally, mentally, and physically, but Tom never truly saw her as anything more than a friend. She was stuck in this cycle of giving love and never receiving it in return. And eventually the weight of that one-sided affection took its toll on her. Her heart began to break every time she saw Tom with other people sharing the love and attention that she desperately wanted from him. It wasn't just about love anymore. It was about realizing that no matter how deep her feelings were, Tom would never feel the same way. And that realization was devastating. And this story resonates with so many people on Reddit, because many of us have been in relationships where love wasn't returned. And we found ourselves stuck in a one-sided relationship, constantly giving without receiving anything in return. Use. Unrequited Heart commented, "I've been in a similar situation where I loved someone so deeply, but they never loved me back. It's painful, but eventually I had to let go." Unrequited love is one of the most painful experiences. You love someone with everything you have, but you can't make them love you back. And sometimes, the only way to heal is to accept that love can't be forced. On one-sided love shared, "I spent years loving someone who never saw me as more than a friend. It hurt to let go, but I finally realized I deserve someone who loves me the same way." See, about 22. 3K likes. Love should be mutual, and when it isn't, it's incredibly hard to keep going. Letting go is painful, but it's necessary for self-healing, You Forgotten Feelings wrote. You give so much, but when it's not returned, you start questioning your worth. I had to walk away to save myself. When you give everything to someone who can't give back, it starts to affect your self-worth, and sometimes the healthiest thing to do is walk away. You, Invisible Love said, "I loved them with all my heart, but they never loved me back. It's painful, but eventually, I had to accept it and move on." 19. 5K likes. Accepting that love isn't always returned is one of the hardest things to do in life, but it's the only way to make space for love that is mutual and fulfilling. Emily's story is a reminder that love can be beautiful, but it doesn't always work out the way we want. Unrequited love is painful, and it's a journey of self-discovery and healing. Sometimes, the best thing we can do is to walk away and accept that we deserve someone who will love us back. Because love isn't meant to be one-sided.